Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We're going to be dealing, as mentioned, with the Book of Judith. It's going to be a little different this morning. I messed my hand up last week fooling with Negroes and carrying on. And was sore down on what. We're going to press on today. As you know, this is Black History Month, so we're going to be focusing in on Black history. And our topic for today is warrior women in the Bible and beyond.
Well,
All right.
Black history tribute to black women.
All right.
all right.
All right. Women dance.
The black woman has always been a central figure in the struggle for self-determination.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
She can be found throughout history as a major contributor to freedom.
Well,
Even though historically they were forced to play a subservient role to their male counterpart, they contributed greatly to freedom fighting. Black women have consistently fought behind, beside, and ahead of their men whenever their family, tribe, community, or country was in trouble.
well,
They have stood boldly for self-rule and equality and have placed their lives on the line.
that's right.
Yes, yes, yes.
We want to begin in Judith. If I can get, I hope we have our Jerusalem Bibles, because we're not going to find it in the other ones. Start off with Judith 1. Judith 1, verse 11 and 12, if I can get someone to read that for me. Judith 1, verse 11 and 12.
But the inhabitants of these countries ignored the summons of Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Assyrians, and did not rally to him to make war. They were not afraid of him, since in their view he appeared isolated. Hence, they sent his ambassadors back with nothing achieved and in disgrace.
All right. That 12 too?
Okay, Nebuchadnezzar was furious with all these countries. He swore by his throne and kingdom to take revenge on all the territories of Cilicia, Damascene, and Syria, of the Moabites and the Ammonites, of Judea and Egypt as far as the limits of the two seas, and to ravage them with the sword.
All right, thank you. In other words, Nebuchadnezzar was pissed.
That's right.
He had sent out his emissaries to the surrounding kingdoms to join him as he proceeded to pillage and conquer his way across the region. The other leaders balked at his invitation, saying, hey, you just only one man, one king. So, no thank you, Nebuchadnezzar. We just going to stay here and do our thing. But unfortunately for them, King Nebuchadnezzar was more than one man. He had a powerful army. And he sent his army and destroyed each city that rejected joining him. After those victories, he returned, he and his army, to the city of Nineveh, and the army just kind of chilled for 120 days, relaxing and partying and having a good time. Let's move on and read Judith chapter 2, verse 4 and 6. Judith chapter 2, verse 4 and 6.
When the council was over, Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Assyrians, sent for Holofernes, general-in-chief of his armies, and subordinate only to himself. He said to him, thus speak the great king, Lord of the whole world. Be on your way, take men of proved valor, and about 120 cavalrymen, then advance against the western lands, since these people have disregarded my call.
All right. So the great general Holofernes has orders from King Nebuchadnezzar. And those orders were basically to finish what they had started 120 days ago. He says to Holofernes, slay them in the valleys, fill the brooks with their dead till they overflow. Put them to slaughter. King Nebuchadnezzar wants total submission from everybody. And Holofernes destroyed the lands of Pud, Lud, Ramis, parts of Israel. They marched through the Tigris and the Euphrates areas to Mesopotamia, destroying all of the big cities.
My Lord.
They burned crops, livestock, anything that was in his way. Remember now, this is the second wave of King Nebuchadnezzar. The other countries should have known what was about to happen. They should have known that Nebuchadnezzar was not going to leave them alone. But they didn't. And now, guess what? It's too late.
Well,
You can't shake the hands of your enemy and think everything is going to be all right.
well,
You can't shake hands with your enemy and think things are going to be all right.
well.
Need someone to read for me Judith 3, verse 7 and 8.
He then made his way down the coast with his army and stationed garrisons in all the fortified towns, levying outstanding men there as auxiliaries. The people of these cities and all the other towns in the neighborhood welcomed him, wearing garlands and dancing to the sounds of tambourines. Notwithstanding this, he demolished their shrines and cut down their sacred trees, carried out his commissions to destroy all local gods and to force the nations to worship Nebuchadnezzar alone, and compelled men of every language and nationalities to hail him as God.
All right, so you get the picture?
Yes.
As Holofernes is approaching here, the other towns and cities, the inhabitants, they scared to death, and they say, well, let's make an effort to save ourselves. And so they come out with gifts, and they dancing and playing music and everything.
Well.
Trying to give the impression that they don't want to fight. They just, hey, we just want to get along. We just want to get along. But Holofernes says, bump that. He destroyed everything that they had. They should have known better by now. Recent history had shown them that only death and destruction was accompanying Holofernes. You cannot sing and dance your way into the hearts of your enemy.
Well,
It's just not going to happen. You can try all you want, but your enemy is your enemy.
that's right.
Holofernes, after getting information on the nation Israel, proceeds with his army to also do in the rest of the nation Israel. And a messenger is sent to the nation Israel, and he tells them, well, first of all, he tells Holofernes about the people of the nation Israel. How when they are doing the good thing that they're supposed to be doing, God is in their favor and on their side, and no one can defeat them. But when they're running around doing false gods and other things like that, they're susceptible to defeat. Holofernes basically takes a position, I don't care what side they are, what they got, we going and get them. Right? So the messenger goes to the nation Israel and tells them about the plans that Holofernes has for them. And the leaders are now in panic mode as they see the armies approaching the city. Finally, after praying and ripping their clothes, they come up with a plan that, well, if we can't provoke God to save us in 5 days, we will surrender. Enter now Judith. All right, so I know that y'all, where Judith at? Gotta give you a little background for it.
Oh, okay, all right.
So Judith, now she is a widower of 3 years. She's still wearing her mourning clothes. She is rich And she is beautiful.
Well, all right.
She only leaves her house for required religious purposes. In verse 7 it says, she was also of a goodly countenance and very beautiful. There was none that gave her ill words, as she feared God greatly. In other words, she was a good sister, a righteous sister,
Well, all right.
and shall I say again, a fine sister. She hears what the leaders are getting ready to do, and she summons them to her house and gives the following message, challenging them: either you believe or you don't. I get someone to read Judith 8, verses about 14 through 16.
Almighty to the test. You do not understand anything and never will. You cannot sound the depth of the heart of man or unravel the arguments of his mind. How can you fathom the God who made all things, or sound his mind, or unravel his purpose? No, brother, do not provoke the anger of the Lord, our God.
All right? Judith is putting
Amen.
on notice. How you going to challenge God and give God a deadline when he going to step in and work with you and rescue you? You can't talk to God like that and argue with God. After all the scolding, Judith begins to take things in her own hand. She first prays mightily that God would not let them be destroyed, and all that has been built back up, once again destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar and his general Holofernes. After all her lamentations to God, I'm going to kind of interpret how I understand the conversation went. God says, look here, Sister Judith, I need you to take off that sackcloth you've been wearing for over 3 years now. Go fix yourself up, wash yourself up, and get yourself together. And in verse 4, we see that, verse 4, chapter 10, we see that Judith took sandals upon her feet and put about her bracelets. She went in, put on her chain, in the mirror, put on her ring,
Got her bangles on.
got her earrings on. She decked herself out bravely, sexy, to allure the eyes of all men that should see her. Boy, oh boy, we got a one-woman army coming up.
Well,
Judith takes an evening stroll with one of her maidservants and accidentally, on purpose, stumbles into the camp of Holofernes. The brother sees her, and he is rocked from head to toe by her beauty. He invites her into the tent for an evening meal and some little chit-chat, a little small talk. And she begins to throw him some counterintelligence on how he can defeat the nation Israel. This fool, Holofernes, he's just soaking it all in. Yeah, Judith, that sounds good. Yeah, for 3 days they carry on, just kind of getting to know each other. And on the fourth night, Holofernes wants to say, it's about time to take this thing to another level. Time to get a little more intimate, a little closer. And so he comes and says, you care for some wine, Judith? She said, oh yeah. I'd like some wine. Holofernes got the plans in the back of his head. So, oh yeah, she's starting to loosen up now. Get ready for the kill. Scripture says that Holofernes drank more wine that night than all the days of his youth. Wow. Next thing you know, Holofernes is passed out. And while he's dreaming sweet dreams of Judith, she cuts his doggone head off.
oh, my Lord. My Lord. That's in the Bible.
So it's right down in there. her maidservant brings in an old sack and they drop his head in and they stroll on back to their city. And I'm like trying to figure out, I mean, how fine can a sister be that she don't just let down your guard and get your head chopped off. So I just try to imagine, so I just kind of scroll and see how. That one,
Oh, yeah.
it could have been that one. Which one? I don't know. Y'all can kind of decide on your own, but I don't know. Maybe maybe a toe or something. I don't know about the whole head.
All right.
Well, we just don't know, but obviously she did have lots and lots of beauty.
Well,
Got some poems in your handout. I'd like someone to read a sister, preferably. The first poem, Goddess Blue.
Body of a goddess with a face to match, but really can't you see beyond that? See into my soul, I have full control of my destiny. Now you truly know the rest of me, but you may not see the true me. Closed eyes that hold innocence, open heart that gives forgiveness. Body of a goddess with a face to match, but really can you see beyond that?
well,
All right.
Yes.
So getting back to Judith, she takes the head to the city and she shows the head to everyone in the city and they all excited. And they take Holofernes' head and hang it up on the wall and the troops of Holofernes look and see that the great leader has been killed. Nation Israel comes out of the city storming, running rampant through the troops of Holofernes, killing them as they go. Beautiful women, beautiful sisters with an eye and a mind to know how to do what is necessary for their people. We're going to move into some of the other beautiful black warriors, as it is Black History Month, and I've broken it down in sections. We're going to look at some of the women on the Bible during the period of the Old Testament. Then we're going to look at some of the sisters in the motherland Africa and wind up with some of the sisters from here in the United States. First, let's take a look at Queen Hatshepsut of Egypt. She was the second female pharaoh and ruled for about 21 years. Her reign is considered one of the most successful of all the pharaohs. Under her leadership, she reestablished trade networks for Egypt. She is most noted for the statuary building that took place under her rule. She had statues, columns, just beautified the city of Egypt. That's Queen Hatshepsut.
well,
Deborah and Jael. I think Sister Shakesha talked about Deborah a while back. And Deborah directed the downfall of Sisera, an enemy of the black nation Israel. Her partner in crime, Jael, gave sanctuary to the fleeing Sisera in her tent. And while he was asleep, got another sleep attack. While he was sleeping, Jael drove
And/or drunk.
While he was sleeping, Jael took a stake, a tent peg, and drove it through his head. Let's move on.
well,
Queen Tamiris took on the King Cyrus of Persia. This was after Cyrus had killed her son in an earlier battle. She had called him out for another fight, and she prophesied, "I will quench your thirst for blood." She sent out her troops. King Cyrus was defeated and killed by her army. She had his body beheaded and crucified the body and stuck his head in a wineskin filled with blood, thus fulfilling her prophecy.
Bravo.
Let's get back to a little poetry. Second poem, Black Woman. It's in your handout. Get someone to read that for me.
Since the brother's scared, y'all go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, take one.
The links of courage made a chain that cannot be broken. The hands that made each golden link left me a priceless token. My heritage has been the shield that kept me strong and free. The woman that I am today now walks victoriously.
Amen.
Well,
All right.
Amen.
Let's move on to our next woman warrior, Queen Artemisia of Caria. She fought with the Persian king Xerxes. Queen Tamiris was a skilled naval commander. If you remember the movie 300 about the battle, the 300 was Spartans. She was featured in that movie as Xerxes' confidant, and she was in charge of his naval warships. The Battle of Salamis is the great historical battle that history recounts regarding her. But of course, in the movie, she was white. But that's all right. We know the real deal, right?
yeah, Hollywood.
We know the truth.
Next, we have Queen Amashuto. She is from Cush. The land of Cush is where she ruled. Alexander, you heard stories about the great Alexander, how he just pillaged the world and moved here and moved there. Alexander came upon the land of Cush, attempting to conquer it. But as he entered into the land of Cush, he saw her armies. And after looking at his armies, he didn't even engage. He just turned around and walked away.
Wow.
Powerful sister.
That's right.
Amen.
Queen Zenobia. Queen Zenobia conquered the Eastern Roman Empire and annexed Egypt. She is known for fostering intellectual pursuits, and under her rule she gave religious freedom to all and protected minorities. Her empire was a multicultural and multi-ethnic. She is described as follows. Her face was dark of a swarthy hue. Her eyes were black and powerful beyond the unusual wont. Her spirit divinely great, and her beauty incredible. So white her teeth that many thought they were pearls. That's according to Augustine in history.
Well,
Queen Roakuna. This sister was taking a bath, chilling, cleaning herself up, and heard that there was a revolt going on. She said, oh no, that ain't happening. She jumps up, vowing not to bathe or brush her hair till it was stomped out. She rode into battle, leading her army against those that would rise up, and she led them into victory. And in her statue, she is depicted as disheveled, with disheveled hair, half of her hair disheveled because of her vow. And in the statues, you see her hair half braided and half unbraided. Sister going out to take care of business.
well,
Women in the motherland. Omalaya Kute, an activist. Kute was a teacher and political campaigner. She was also a traditional aristocrat of Nigeria. She is known for her strong women's right movement that she established. Kuti was the first woman in the country to drive a car. She had been nicknamed the Mother of Africa, and the Lioness of Lissabi. Kuti championed women's right to vote. Her women's rights movement against the arbitrary taxation of women caused the downfall of King Oba Ademola in 1949. Now, we got to understand that sisters during the early days had not only to struggle against the white power structure, but also had an internal struggle within the family in terms of equality with the black male. In order for them to be more effective, it was necessary for them to also bring us men down a notch and put us in place.
Come on with
It was
that.
important that we, I'm just calling it like it is.
Just the facts.
Where's the fact?
It was important that we attack our oppressor as partners, equal responsibility, equal risk. Her feminist group created the Apocrypha Women's Union, and later the Women's International Democratic Federation. These groups promoted women's rights to education and employment and the entrance into the political arena. She angered the Nigerian and British government with her international travels. She met with Russians, the Hungarians, Chinese, met with Chairman Mao, and in 1956, unfortunately, she got trumped. They took her visa away. By the 1950s, the women's rights movement grew to over 20,000 strong. She fought price controls that were hurting the marketplace where women worked. Standing before her male counterparts as they debated the role of sisters in the country of Nigeria and the liberation struggle, she made it crystal clear what she and her 20,000 plus activist sisters were about. She said, and I quote, "For a long time, you have used your penis as a mark of authority,
My Lord.
that you are our husband. Today, we shall reverse the order and use our vagina to play the role of husband." Laying it down.
Have mercy.
Laying it down.
Have mercy.
Just that.
Say, we in this struggle together, brother.
Yes.
Next we have, and this is one of my favorites, Ya'asitawa.
Yes.
Ya'asitawa. She was chosen as the queen mother of the Ejisu of the Ashanti Empire in Ghana, born 1840. Highly revered throughout Africa as a reactionary to the European power structure. She was the military leader of the Asante War. This was centered around the golden stool. The stool was a sacred symbol of the soul of the Ashanti nation. The British tried to force them to give it up. They gave the British initially a fake one. When they found out that it was fake, they came back trying to find the real one. And they took the king and other nobles as ransom for the golden stool. In addressing the other men and members of the Ashanti tribe, she states the following: "Now I have seen that some of you fear to go toward and fight for our king. If it were in the brave days of Osei, Tutu, Okumofo, Anyake, and Opolo, where chiefs would not sit down to see their king taken away without firing a shot. No white man could have dared to speak to chief of the Ashanti in the way the governor spoke to you chiefs this morning. Is it true that the bravery of the Ashanti is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot be. I must say this: if you, the men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will."
Well,
The Ashanti tribe rallied around her and they surrounded the fort where the leaders were captured. The British and over 3,000 inhabitants were virtually starving to death inside the fortress because she had cut off their food and water supplies. People inside were dying or ate rats trying to survive. The Ashanti let the women and children come out to save some of them. And when that was taking place, the British leaders snuck on out with a little chicken behind with everybody else, and finally was able to reach some support troops to come in and finally subdue the rebellion that they had going on. The British called her the Joan of Arc of Africa. The real golden stool was never found by the British. It is brought out every 5 years now for celebration of the War of the Golden Stool. And I looked, and on YouTube, there are a couple of part 1 and 2 short segments about this, which you may want to look at. It's very interesting and inspiring.
All right.
Amen.
Queen Nzinga lived in 1583 to 1663. She became an ambassador for the people of Angola because of her cunning and her success at diffusing foreign crises. During her life, the Atlantic slave trade and consolidation of power by the Portuguese was on the rise. The Portuguese had a policy of demanding that tribute be paid in the form of slaves. She went to negotiate a peace with them. The Portuguese governor was astounded by her confidence and her assurity. They ended up with an equally agreeable treaty. But of course, Portuguese did not honor their part of the bargain and continued to raid the slave routes. She took a guerrilla army and conquered those slave routes and made alliances with the Dutch to stop the Portuguese attempts to continue. Once when in negotiations with the Portuguese governor, he was there sitting in a chair and gave her a mat to sit on. She in turn turned to her servant, and he came and got down on his hands and knees, and she sat on his back and negotiated eye to eye with the Portuguese.
All right.
Queen Nzinga fought the Portuguese up into her 60s, often leading the battles. She would win, and then they would win, and it went back and forth. She died peacefully, however, at the age of 80.
All right.
All right. Strong looking group. The women soldiers of Dahomey in Benin. This group of women warriors were feared by anyone they encountered. They never ran from a fight. They were known as the Dahomey Amazons by the Europeans, but they called themselves our mothers. This was around the mid-1600s. This female warrior group started out as initially elephant hunters for the king. A new king came into power and changed their role to bodyguards, and from there they grew into a female army. They were active in the policies of the nation, the decisions that were made, and yearly an official parade of the troops was done and a mock battle taking place of rescuing slaves from a fort. The Dahomey female army was about a third of the entire army. They, along with the rest of the Dahomey forces, fought the French on multiple occasions. And it was not until the French Foreign Legion came in as backup that the nation was defeated.
Well,
Amina Muhammad, Queen of Zazu. She's a Muslim warrior around the early 15th century. She was a fighter at a very young age. As a child, she was known to carry a dagger just like the warriors did. She ruled for over 30 years, and she's given credit for establishing the first official government among the people in the area, which covered northern Nigeria. She also conquered the regions of Katsina and Kano in northern Nigeria, where a tribute was paid to her, also far down as middle Nigeria. She established Zaria as a center of trade. The introduction of kolo nuts in the area is credited to her. Legend has it that after a conquest, she would take a lover from the defeated group and have a little affair with him that night. And the next morning, she would either kill or castrate him. Sound like time for another poem. If I could get someone to read this poem, Beautiful Black Women, Beautiful Black Woman.
Beautiful woman, this poem is for you. Full of beauty and grace. Rare black queen sitting high on your throne. No one can take your place. Your heart is full of pure gold, never to be played with, bought or sold. Your love is patient, your love is kind. Always trying to bring joy to others, even when you can't do it for yourself. And keeping them close in mind, a good woman is what you are. A woman to whom is proud of who she is and what she stands for. Never seeking definition from whom she is with. A strong woman is what I see when I look at you. One who can pick up the small pieces of her broken heart and carry on as if she was never hurt in the first place.
Oh, Lord.
When talking about this woman, I can't help but smile, knowing the woman that I can speak of so highly of is me.
Well, all right.
Calm it down a little bit. Yes.
Well, let's move on. Here in the United States, we'll try to speed it up a little bit. Here we have Elaine Brown, former Black Panther member. In fact, she headed the Oakland chapter for a while when Huey P. Newton had to leave the country. She was instrumental in setting up the free breakfast program for young black children before they went to school. She, along with Panther members under her guidance, got Lionel Wilson elected as the first black mayor of Oakland. You can find her memoirs in A Taste of Power. Her most famous publication is Seize the Time. Amy Ashwood. While we know of Marcus Garvey, Amy Ashwood, his first wife, was an instrumental part of the Garvey movement.
Well,
She was the director of the Black Star Line Steamship Corporation and founder of the Negro, and I put that in quotes, world newspaper.
Don't start no meeting.
Diane Nash, civil rights activist. Miss Nash was a leader and strategist of the student wing of the civil rights movement. She headed up the first successful campaign to integrate lunch counters in Nashville. She co-founded the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, that Stokely Carmichael is well known for. Her work with the Selma Voting Rights Movement paved the way for the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
well,
Come on now.
Joanne Nash Robinson, also a civil rights activist. In 1949, she was verbally assaulted for sitting in the white section of a bus in Montgomery. The Women's Political Council, which she was a part of, began pressuring for more fairness regarding public transportation. They managed to get the buses to stop at every corner in the black neighborhoods, just as they did in whites. When Brown versus the Board of Education passed, she told the mayor of Montgomery, a boycott's coming.
well,
When Rosa Parks was arrested, which was part of their plan, Ms. Robinson had been up the night before putting together 52,000 handbills to call for a boycott of the bus system. And finally, Ida B. Wells,
all right.
Come on now.
a journalist and newspaper editor. She was one of the founders of the NAACP in 1909. She spent time documenting and writing about the lynchings in America. She sued and won a case against the railroad company for dragging her from her seat on the train that she had paid for back to the back of a crowded car of the train. But of course, it was later overturned by a higher court. She lost her job as a school teacher because of her writings about lynching, and she encouraged blacks to leave Tennessee, and eventually some 6,000 did. She continued, however, fighting and writing about lynching. So we just wanted to cover, as we honor black women this month. Try to pick out some that we were not as familiar with. Some, every year we could get a lot of the same figures. So we tried to touch base on some, a lot, and I didn't know anything about, and up to 2 in the morning reading and learning and getting inspired about. And I'll try to close out with trying to find a poem that would really kind of sum up everything. So I'm going to see if this plays.
I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that I started only clothes every 100 years. Such a living perfect. I am man. I said on the throne.
My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears for my birthday make the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a pack of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I'm a gazelle, so swift, you can't catch me. For a birthday present when he was 3, I gave my son Hannibal an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength clothes ever on. My son found me at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself. It was Jesus. Men told me.
Battery went out.
In the middle of the revolution.
Bottom line, we have a new wave continuing that long, great tradition of strong black women here in our church.
Amen.
And we want to pass that down, that legacy that we put together, because the struggle is not over.
Well,
We have a lot to do, a lot to accomplish, but as long as we have strong black women such as these, it's going to be all right. We don't have to worry about a thing. Amen.